Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And a very good morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dorset Street in Colombo, and broadcasting to you live on TV1 and on Facebook, and a little bit later on YouTube. And this morning, another wet day in Colombo, and in much elsewhere in the country too. To discuss, but this morning the news is that the authorities are on standby, and the strong winds and showers are expected to enhance in the northeast, northwestern, western and southern sea areas in the next few days. And the Met Department says that about 30 to 40 kilometers per hour winds will be experienced across the sea areas around the island. And the Disaster Management Center says that over 24,000 people are currently seeking shelter in 168 relief centers. And they also say that more than 68,000 people from 14 districts have been affected. And our thoughts, obviously, with all those people affected, and to those remarkable men and women who are assisting in the relief effort. And this morning, to discuss a perennial, what appears to be a perennial problem, a subject that hardly ever leaves the front pages of newspapers and the main stories on television and radio, is the power sector, and of course the principal player in the power sector, with around 50% of Sri Lanka's power requirement, is none other than the NEWSLINE coal power plant. And to discuss some aspects of that project, we have with us here this morning Mr. Trishan Perera from the Center for Sustainability at the University of Sri Lanka. Very good morning to you, Trishan Perera.
Very good morning.
And thank you for coming on Newsline. Now then, NEWSLINE power station is hardly ever out of the news. It was commissioned in 2006, and the work started in 2006, and President Rajapaksa opened the first phase with the 300 megawatts in March 2011. Ever since, it's not moved away from the news. There's so much of controversy and so on. The arguments for it is usually that it's far cheaper, and it does its job of providing power to the country. It's nearly 50% of the power, and at 900 megawatts. And you say that that's not the full story, that there are other costs that the CEB have not disclosed. So what's the real story then, Trishan?
Yeah, I'll start from the beginning.
Yeah.
This plant contributes about 40 to 55% of the total electricity supply of the country.
Yeah.
And at the start, there were several protests.
Yeah.
I think even from the 1990s, there were several protests.
Right. Yeah.
And after this government of 2005 government,
yeah,
they have taken the people who living in that area and few MPs,
yeah,
to China to show how the coal power plant is working.
Right.
Actually, that was a 4-day tour.
Right.
But only 1 hour spent to visit the coal power plant.
Right.
All other were spent to see the Great Wall of China and other entertainment things.
Okay.
And they agreed, all the participants except 2. One is MP Range Bandara and another person. Except those 2, all others were agreed because they gave some bribe, some
form of inducement.
Yeah.
Right.
Then
okay. Well, I mean, don't know about inducement, but okay, they only spend an hour looking at the plant, and the rest of the time.
4-hour 4-day tour.
4 days, just an hour dedicated to that. Okay. Right.
And also there's an issue at the technology use.
Yeah.
Initially the CB engineers planned to get some Japanese technology based plant,
right.
but we got Chinese technology based plant.
Yeah.
That's the main issue.
Yeah,
And
but the funding came from China.
Yeah, that was
the
issue.
in the real world, China is not going to fund you to buy things from Japan, are they? They'll sell their technology. So that's. But anyway, so tell us the rest of the story.
Yeah, because of these technology issues, and then there were several breakdowns.
Yeah.
And then what is the call?
Right.
From where it came? From the several other countries.
Yeah.
Not in Sri Lanka. It will cost. There were several costs. It is the traveling cost and for fuel, and it is mining from the ground.
But obviously.
So that will give some carbon dioxide to the environment. That will cost huge. There is a huge cost because of the emitting carbon dioxide and other polluted gas to the environment.
Yeah. But now, Trishan, those negatives were known to the planners, whether they put this in Sampur or whether they put it in Norcholy. And there was a big debate before this. I think the original project was mooted when under the presidency of Chandrika Kumaratunga. And it took a long time, finally, for some government to say, right, no, we're going to do this. And so work started in 2006. But obviously, they knew all these things because they would have done an environmental impact assessment. Did they do that?
Yeah, I don't think. But it was not properly done.
You say that it wasn't properly done.
And that was approved by the Provincial Environmental Authority of the Northwestern Province.
Right.
There's a huge issue in the Northwestern Province because Central Environment Authority don't have huge control in that province.
Right.
There's a separate Environmental Act
Right.
at the Northwestern Province.
I see. So, but now, in spite of all that, the plant has now finished its different stages, and it's now at 900
and also,
megawatts.
I have to add that something.
Yeah.
When the second phase and second and third phase were constructed,
Yeah.
I went there in 2012. At that time, almost half of the second and third phase were constructed,
Yeah.
but the environmental impact assessment was not approved
At that time. I see.
even at the end of 2012.
I see. So when phase 1 had already been commissioned.
That at that time phase 1 environment approval was given, but it was given subject to do a separate environmental assessment for the second and third phase.
Right.
And the second and third phase environment assessment was not completed even before the half of the constructed was started.
Right. Now then, you say that there are other costs to derive at the full, to take a look at the full picture. We can't only look at some aspects. And those some aspects, of course, is that in its raw form, the cost of coal power is cheaper than the others. But of course, there are some drawbacks. You can't shut it down straight away. You can't start it up straight away. So there's a lot of time that you can't switch it off like that and switch it on like that either. So there are all those issues. But what are these other costs that you're talking about?
Main issues prevailing related to the Norcholy coal power plant. FGDs and ESP are currently not working at the first phase. And coal and coal yard, there's a huge dust coming from the yard to the who's living around those areas. I saw some people, they are trying to spray some water last Saturday, but if they can continue that in each and every day, the people will be benefited.
Right. This is to stop the fly ash from
Fly ash,
running.
not fly ash and the coal.
Right. So that's the normal form. What do you do eventually? What do you do with the fly ash?
They must have some mechanism to dispose them. The electricity board has called for some proposals in last year.
Yeah.
Then I think UDO, RDS, someone had request them to use in the road construction.
Right.
But the electricity board refused to give those free of charge.
Is it safe to use fly ash in other applications, like in, let's say, to make bricks and so on?
Yeah, it might be safe, but we need to test before using for the day-to-day activities.
Right.
We need to do some medical test and all the tests before.
And what about the people who are living in the area who are affected? We've got footage of the plants with a lot of covered by ash, and so there are lots of farmers around there and small communities. What's happening to them? Would they have to continue to live there, or will they be eventually rehoused?
I think they should have a right to be there, because they were living there for several years.
But how can you expect them to? Surely there's a need for progress. So isn't it better, rather than them living in what we can now say dangerous conditions?
I think electricity board has to take some actions, because they have to decide to shut down this plant by 2030 or 35.
Shut it down?
Shut it down.
After spending so much money?
But I think if it
They've
is...
spent over $1.2 billion.
But I think they must do that. At least before 2014, they have to shut it down. Then they should implement some alternative plans for the coal. I think at the same time, some of engineers are forced to do that because of this. If there's a technology issue, that's one of the reasons.
Right.
So unfortunately, we don't have any option at this stage without Norachole, because
we need it now.
Yeah, we need it now.
Right. So what you're saying is it needs to be phased out. So we need to plan
some alternative energies like LNG or solar power and wind power, and there are several renewable energies methods that we have, and latest technologies we
can Sri Lanka afford it?
But we have to afford it at any cost, because the environment and the humans, we are borrowing all these things from the future.
I see.
Because all the resources are not of ours. Those belong to our future as well. When we take the resources, there's something called overshoot day. That means we are using the resources belong to us by end of August in every year, and we use the resources which is belong to the future in all thereafter.
I see.
So we need to stop the resource we are using at the moment.
So we need to stop borrowing these future resources. We need to keep that for the future.
Overusing all the resources, not at the Sri Lankan level, it is globally.
Globally, I see. So, all right, but what can we do here and now? Now, as you say, we can't do without it, because we've got it, and we've become quite dependent on it. Like nearly 50% of the power is coming from there. And on the days that it doesn't work, or it's planned shutdowns or whatever, the CB does miss it. And I suppose their finances get affected as well. But now that we've got it, and we can't, as you say, we can't just shut it straight down. It needs to be planned over some period of time. What can be done now who should pay and who should get involved in the relocation, for example, of the people around there who are affected?
I think, as I already mentioned, I think they should not relocate it, but the CB has to take some actions to mitigate the current issues.
But what can you do?
I think they have already started to construct some fence around the plant.
Right.
That is 50 meter in height.
Right.
I think if they can increase the height, it is also better.
50 meters?
50 meter, yeah.
Wow, that's a big wall. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's 50 meters. That's a lot of meters. Okay. So a wall around the...
Sorry, 15 meters.
15. Okay. Okay. It's about 50 feet.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. 15
meters.
Okay. So a wall around there. And what else?
And they can cover the coal from something like big carpet. Or, I think we are using some carpets in for the rain at the Premadasa Stadium.
Right.
So we can use the same technology, same method to the coal power plant. If they cover the plant, cover those coal and fly ash, the people will be benefited.
Right. So there won't be as much dust.
Much dust, yeah.
But the people could be given the option to move if they want to.
I think people don't like to move.
But then, what about progress?
I think CB has now taken actions, some actions, but they should look at this into...
But we have the same sort of problem in, let's look at another project, say the Umaoya project. Yeah. And there are people there who don't want to move. Yeah. But it's unlikely that the government will stop that project.
I think when starting this kind of project, there are some kind of issues which we can't mitigate. Yeah. So we need to give some compensation at the time. Yeah. Something like in tunnel construction. Yeah. We need to give some money to the people who are affected due to the loss of water.
But yes,
we have to identify those issues at the beginning of the project.
Yes, not later.
Yeah. Not later. Yeah. So we have to keep some money. If there is a issue because of the power plant, the power plant should come to the people and give some compensation for their activities.
Right. And you're saying that the CB is not doing that, but they should do it.
Yeah, they should do it.
I see.
They should compensate at whatever time.
And, sorry, now then, does the CB have the money to do this?
I think they have earned a lot of money from because of this coal power plant. Yeah. It was cost around 190 billion, and they have earned around 140 billion because of this project.
Indeed.
And also this is because of this plant we are getting electricity at lower price. That is also, but in future the coal prices may be going up.
Right.
So we need to go for renewable energy such as solar power and wind power and some tide waves and other things.
But can you use solar power to all the time? I mean, what about when there are at peak times?
Yeah, I think there are some new technologies. We can store the solar energy with some new technologies such as batteries and something. And also we can use if we have excess solar energy at the daytime, we can use those energy to pump the water from down to up in the power plants. Which is in the Victoria, Randanigala, we can pump the water from down to up.
I see.
Using the excess solar energy, if we have excess solar energy at the daytime, that we can use at the night.
Yeah.
And the batteries.
What about the security of power, of energy, when you use so many other mediums?
Yeah, I think that should be addressed by the electricity board. I'm not expert in the power,
Yeah.
but they should do something with minimum damage to the environment.
That's your
as
call.
also there are some options, something like nuclear power.
Yeah.
There are some new technologies with much
What
safer.
what about LNG?
LNG is also better, but it will also emit the gases to the environment.
Indeed.
But it's something better than the coal.
Right. But Trishan, I was looking at some other things like in Berlin, for example, in the city itself, there is a coal power plant, but apparently they use something called clean coal. The technology is different. So can NEWSLINE ever be converted?
There is the issue at the coals which they are using at the current time.
Yeah. What about?
I think CB and the Lanka coal should available those quality of the coal reports to the people. So we know that what type of coal they are using.
Yes, whether the coal is
good or bad.
Good or bad.
Yeah.
Yes, I see.
They can easily available those reports to the public.
I see. So we need a little bit more transparency.
Yeah.
Okay. And you say that the CB, actually they've already paid the capital costs, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've already, with the money that they've earned, they've already managed to do that. So that's very good, because in the last so many years. But then you're saying we have to balance the profit with the environmental costs. What about indirect? What are the other indirect costs?
Yeah, when considering the indirect impacts, first one is the coal.
Yeah.
Coal we are brought from a foreign country.
Yes.
So we have to get it from the earth.
Right.
So that will cost something
to
the environment. There are some
global
environmental damage because of the coal mining.
Right.
That will there is a soil erosion and several impacts might be there. And also at the when transporting the coal from that country to Sri Lanka, there will be a cost for the transportation.
Yes.
That will mostly something like diesel emission. And when transferring the coal from the ship to the our coal power plant yard, some part of coals might be fallen into the sea.
Yes, I read that over a year, nearly one shipload is lost in wastage. So that seems a lot of coal.
Yeah. So that might affect to the sea.
The sea.
Basically
the marine life and all the marine systems.
Fish might be affected.
So basically, Trishan,
so that there is a cost.
Yes.
Then those will be stored at the yard. Then the dust and those will be affect to the people.
Indeed.
And there will be another cost. Those are some costs because of the coal.
So your call to the CEB is to be more environmentally conscious and to use the money that they have undoubtedly made to address some of these other indirect impacts, and especially to try and make the people who live around there and who have businesses around there to make their life somewhat more acceptable.
When we consider the hotels, especially the tourism, because of this coal power plant, some people might be affected. The people had told that they have huge effect because of the NEWSLINE coal power plant.
Right.
When we consider that, when the tourists are not coming, the income which is gained to our country will be lost. And the people who are working at this hotel will have affected. And the travel agencies
So there are
the suppliers for the hotels, and then the farmers.
Chain, the whole chain.
The whole chain will be damaged. That has a huge cost.
So we must bear that in mind as well.
But that will not come under the NEWSLINE power plant.
And I think we need more people like you to come on the programs and come before the media and spread that message that we need all to be aware of our own actions, and there's a need to call for wider awareness in everything that we do. And amongst those things, of course, is if we cast our minds back, we have a story in the Island newspaper this morning that is very uplifting to us, and that is that in terms of the Treasury bond scam, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka's whistleblower is to be considered for a top award. And that public official is none other than Deepa Seneviratne, the one-time head of the Public Debt Department of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, is being considered for a top 50 Professional and Career Woman Awards 2018, we were told, the press was told yesterday. And Dr. Rohan Tatakorala, the chairman of the panel of judges, explained that Mrs. Deepa Seneviratne will be one of those being considered for this award. We must bear in mind that who and what exactly Mrs. Seneviratne did. She made a note when the governor at the time, Arjun Mahendran, told her to increase the take-up from 1 to 20, and then said, oh, well, in that case, do 10, when they objected. Mrs. Seneviratne had the tenacity and the will to write it down, and she made a note. And that was a very important piece of the whole jigsaw puzzle that surrounded the Treasury bond scam. Well done again to Mrs. Deepa Seneviratne. I do hope that she gets this award, because we must celebrate such actions of the public officials of this country. Trishan, thank you for coming here. But before we end in the next 2 minutes, what is your message to the CEB?
My message is we need that plant because of our future errors we done in the past.
Yeah.
But we need to maintain this plant as a mostly environment friendly plant.
Right.
So we need to take actions much as, and they have to mostly work closely with the people who living around the area.
Right.
Because the people saying that CB doesn't talk with them.
So there's a communication.
Yeah, communication error. They need to come to the people and mitigate their issues.
Right.
So that's the main issue. If they need to talk with people and give answers for their issues.
It's a bit like that advertisement that we see and hear about it's good talking. But in this case, it really can be good if they talk to each other. And
they can do whatever actions they can, but sometimes they might don't know what happened to the people.
Indeed, indeed.
So they should go to people each and every day and check what are the issues they have.
Indeed, indeed. Trishan Perera, thank you very much for having come on Newsline and to explain the other side of the NEWSLINE coal power plant. And I hope that there are many others like you who will come up and talk about issues that will affect not only us now, but as you said, our future generations. We are borrowing from the future generations at a rate that is alarming, and we need to mitigate that. Thank you very much, Trishan Perera, for being on Newsline. And that's the way it was. Our Sahanayatra program is underway. Our collection centers are open to help with the flooding, the flood relief program that's being carried out. The forces are out there, and everything that can be done is being done, excepting perhaps that we need to plan and for the future. And we hope on our program tomorrow morning to discuss that aspect of this perennial problem of flooding. On that note, that's about it from Newsline. Take care and God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.